There is a prison that most people do not realize they are in. It is not made of walls or iron bars. It is not something you can see, yet it controls your every move, every decision, every emotion. This prison exists in the mind. It is the endless cycle of thoughts, regrets of the past, worries about the future, the never-ending inner dialogue that tells you who you are, what you should fear, what you should chase. But here is something most people never stop to question. Who is speaking in your mind? Who is the one listening? And if you are the one listening, then you cannot be the voice. You are something deeper, something more than thoughts. You are awareness itself. There was a man I once knew. His life was filled with anxiety, always chasing the next achievement, believing happiness was just around the corner. He told himself, when I get the promotion, I will finally be at peace. When I find the right person, I will be fulfilled. When I have more money, more respect, more success, then I will be free. But every time he reached his goal, a new desire took its place. And so his life was not lived, it was postponed, always waiting for the next moment to bring him happiness. One day something changed. He was walking alone in the evening when suddenly he stopped. He looked up at the sky, and for the first time in years, he saw the colors, felt the air, heard the sounds, not through the filter of his thoughts, but as they truly were. And in that moment, the weight of the past and the future disappeared. He was just here, just now. And he felt something he had been chasing his entire life. He felt, your mind is a tool, a beautiful, powerful tool, but it is not meant to be your master. The problem is that most people do not use their mind. Their mind uses them. It tells them who they are, what they lack, what they should fear. But these are just thoughts, passing, shifting, temporary. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness that watches them. Right now, in this moment, look around you. Feel the breath entering your lungs. Feel the weight of your body in the chair, the air touching your skin. This is life. Not yesterday, not tomorrow, here. Now. There was a man who spent his life searching for wisdom. He traveled far and wide, read every book, sought every teacher. One day, after years of seeking, he found an old sage sitting by a river. The man said, "Master, please tell me the secret to enlightenment." The sage smiled, picked up a stone and dropped it into the water. The ripple spread outward, then disappeared. He said nothing. The man was confused. "What does that mean?" The sage spoke softly. "That was a thought. Watch them arise. Watch them pass. Do not hold on to them. Be like the river. If you want to be free, truly free, then understand this. You are already whole. There is nothing to chase, nothing to fear, nothing missing. Everything you need is here in this moment. The door to freedom has always been open. You only have to step through." Most people live their entire lives without realizing they are trapped. Not by walls, not by physical chains, but by something far more subtle. Something they cannot see, yet it controls every aspect of their existence. This prison is the mind itself. It is the voice inside your head that never stops speaking, the constant stream of thoughts pulling you back into the past or pushing you into an imagined future. A person wakes up in the morning, and before they even step out of bed, their mind is already racing. I should have handled that situation differently yesterday. What if today goes wrong? I need to make sure I get everything done. The mind never allows stillness. It keeps feeding worries, regrets, desires, comparisons, and fears, creating an endless loop. And so, without realizing it, people become prisoners of their own thoughts, believing everything their mind tells them as if it were absolute truth. Imagine a bird born inside a cage. If the cage is all it has ever known, it does not question its limits. It believes that the bars are the boundaries of its world. Even if the door is open, the bird may not leave, because it does not realize it is free. This is exactly how most people live. The cage is not real. It is a construct of the mind, but because they have never questioned it, they remain confined. A person may believe they are not good enough because a voice in their head repeats past failures. Another may feel constant anxiety, always bracing for the next problem, because their mind tells them they must always be on guard. Someone else may live in frustration, feeling stuck in life, not realizing that the prison is not their job, their relationships, or their circumstances. It is the belief that they are powerless to change. The real barrier is the illusion of limitation, the invisible walls of the mind. But here is the truth: you are not your thoughts. The endless chatter in your mind is not who you are. It is simply conditioning, patterns picked up from childhood, society, past experiences. The voice that tells you what you can and cannot do is not reality. It is merely a habit of thinking. And just as habits can be changed, so can your relationship with your mind. There is a way out, but it does not come from fighting your thoughts or trying to silence them by force. It comes from awareness. The moment you step back and observe your mind instead of being lost in it, you create space. You begin to see the difference between your thoughts and your true self. And in that space, freedom begins. The mind will still speak, but its grip on you will weaken. You will see the cage for what it is, an illusion. And the moment you recognize it, the door swings open. The prison was never real to begin with. There is a voice inside your head that never stops speaking. It comments on everything, labeling, judging, analyzing. It tells you who you are, what you should do, what you should fear, and what you lack. Most people live their entire lives believing this voice without question, assuming that if a thought arises in their mind, it must be true. But the reality is, you are not your thoughts. You are the one who observes them. Imagine sitting by a river, watching the water flow. Leaves, twigs, and debris float past, carried by the current. Some objects are large, some small, but they all pass by, never staying in one place for long. This is exactly how thoughts behave. They arise, stay for a moment, and then fade away. But most people do not watch their thoughts like a river. They grab onto them, identify with them, and let them dictate their emotions and actions. A person may think, I am not good enough. This is just a thought, but the moment they believe it, it becomes their reality. They feel small, insecure, and incapable, as if that thought defines them. Another person may think, I always fail, and instead of recognizing it as a passing mental event, they accept it as a fact. Their body reacts, their emotions follow, and soon their actions align with this belief, reinforcing the illusion. This is how thoughts shape identity, not because they are true, but because they are believed. The mind is like a radio that never turns off. It plays old memories, fears of the future, imagined conversations, and endless opinions about everything. But just because a radio is playing does not mean you have to listen. Just because a thought appears does not mean you have to believe it. The moment you realize this, you begin to separate yourself from the constant noise. A child does not enter the world with these thoughts. A baby does not believe it is inadequate or unworthy. It does not worry about the past or obsess over the future. These thoughts are picked up over time from parents, teachers, society, past experiences. They are conditioned patterns, not absolute truths. And if they were learned, they can be unlearned. Awareness is the key. The next time a negative or limiting thought arises, instead of reacting to it, simply observe it. Ah, there's that thought again. Do not fight it, do not analyze it, just notice it. In that moment of observation, you create space, and in that space you are free. The thought may still be there, but its power over you weakens. It becomes just another passing cloud in the sky, another leaf in the river. When you stop identifying with your thoughts, you realize they are just patterns of the mind, not reflections of who you are. You are the awareness that watches, the presence beneath it all, and that presence is untouched by any thought, unshaken by any fear. It is who you truly are. People spend their lives chasing a future that always seems just out of reach. They tell themselves, when I get the promotion, I will finally feel secure. When I meet the right person, I will be complete. When I have more money, more success, more recognition, then I will be happy. But every time they reach what they once desired, the feeling of fulfillment is fleeting, and a new goal takes its place. The mind convinces them that happiness is always somewhere else, always in the next achievement, always in the future. A man once worked tirelessly to build a career he believed would make him happy. He sacrificed time with his family, neglected his health, and pushed himself to exhaustion, believing that once he reached a certain level of success, he would finally be at peace. The day came when he achieved everything he had dreamed of. He had the wealth, the recognition, the power, but something was missing. The fulfillment he had expected never arrived. Instead, he felt emptier than ever. He realized that for years he had postponed his happiness, always telling himself that the next milestone would be the one that finally brought peace. But no milestone ever did. The greatest illusion created by the mind is that happiness is somewhere in the future. This belief keeps people running in circles, always striving, but never arriving. It creates a constant state of lack, a feeling that something is missing, that life is incomplete, but happiness does not exist in some future moment. It is only found in the present. The more you chase it, the further away it seems. The moment you stop and become fully present, you see that nothing was ever missing. There is a child playing in the rain, laughing, dancing, completely absorbed in the moment. The child is not waiting for a future event to bring joy. The child is simply experiencing life as it is. But as people grow older, they lose this ability. They become trapped in their thoughts, always looking ahead, always waiting for something more. They forget that the only place life ever happens is here now. A man once spent years climbing a mountain, believing that at the top he would find enlightenment, when the present moment is the only thing that truly exists. Yet most people spend their lives anywhere but here. They live in their minds, consumed by thoughts of the past or anxieties about the future. The past is nothing more than a collection of memories, some pleasant, some painful, yet people replay it endlessly, clinging to regrets, reliving mistakes, and carrying the weight of what can no longer be changed. The future is equally elusive, an imagined reality that has not yet come to pass, yet people worry about it, as if they have control over what has not yet happened, and so they are never fully here, never fully present in the only moment that is real, now. A man once spent years chasing success, believing that once he had reached a certain level of achievement, he would finally be able to relax and enjoy life. But every time he reached a new goal, his mind immediately created another one. He was never satisfied, never at peace, because he was always looking ahead, believing that fulfillment existed somewhere beyond the present. One day he was sitting alone in a park when he noticed an old man feeding birds. The old man was completely absorbed in the moment, smiling softly, at peace, as if nothing else in the world mattered. The man realized that in all his years of chasing the future, he had forgotten how to simply be. Most people do not live, they endure. They move through life, waiting for the next thing, thinking that happiness will come once they achieve something, change something, fix something. But in doing so, they miss everything. They fail to notice the beauty of this moment, the way the sunlight falls through the trees, the way laughter sounds, the way their breath enters and leaves their body. They are so caught up in their minds that they forget to experience life as it is happening. A child does not question the present moment. When they play, they are fully engaged. When they cry, they feel deeply. When they laugh, they surrender to joy. They do not carry the burdens of yesterday or the worries of tomorrow, but as people grow older, they lose this ability. They become trapped in overthinking, believing that life is a series of tasks to be completed rather than a reality to be lived. They do not realize that the peace they seek has always been available right here in the present. There was once a traveler who asked a wise sage, "Where can I find peace?" The sage smiled, pointed to the ground beneath them, and said, "Here." The traveler asked again, "But when will I feel free?" The sage pointed to the sky and said, "Now." The traveler did not understand at first, but as he walked away, a deep silence settled within him. He looked at the world around him and for the first time truly saw it. And in that moment he understood peace was never missing. It was only ever waiting for him to notice. The mind is a magnificent tool capable of solving complex problems, creating beauty, and shaping the world. But for most people, it does not function as a tool. It becomes their master. They do not use their mind uses them. Thoughts arise, and instead of observing them, They identify with them, believing that whatever their mind says must be true. They mistake the voice in their head for who they are, and in doing so they become trapped in its endless cycle of fear, doubt, and desire. A woman once struggled with self-doubt. Every time she tried to do something new, a voice in her head whispered, "You will fail." Whenever she looked in the mirror, another voice said, "You are not enough." She believed these thoughts without question, allowing them to dictate her emotions and limit her actions. One day she sat quietly and simply observed her thoughts without reacting to them. She noticed how they came and went, like waves rising and falling in the ocean. And then a realization struck her. If she could watch these thoughts, then she could not be them. There was something deeper, something untouched by the endless noise of her mind. The mind creates problems where none exist. It projects fears that may never happen, replays past mistakes that can never be changed, and fills the present moment with distractions. People live in this mental fog, unaware that they are being controlled by their own thoughts. They assume that if they feel anxious, they must have a reason to worry. If they feel anger, there must be something to fight. But emotions are often just reactions to unconscious thought patterns, not reflections of reality. The moment they are observed, their power diminishes. A man was walking through a dense forest when he saw a snake on the path ahead. His heart pounded, his body froze, and fear gripped him. But when he looked closer, he realized it was only a rope. The fear disappeared in an instant. The snake had never been real. It was only his mind's interpretation. This is how most people live, reacting to illusions created by their own thoughts. They mistake the stories in their head for reality, suffering over things that do not exist anywhere except in their imagination. Freedom comes not from silencing the mind, but from seeing it clearly. When a person watches their thoughts without attachment, they gain power over them. The mind may still generate doubts, fears, and desires, but these no longer dictate their experience. They become the observer, the awareness behind the thoughts. And in that awareness there is peace. A monk once told a student, "The mind is like a wild horse. If you let it run freely, it will drag you in all directions. But if you learn to ride it, it will take you wherever you need to go." The student asked, "How do I learn to ride it?" The monk smiled and said, "First realize that you are not the horse. A river does not resist what flows through it. It does not try to hold on to the leaves and branches that drift along its surface, nor does it struggle against the current. It simply allows. The same is true for the sky. It does not cling to the clouds, nor does it fear the storms that pass through. Yet people do the opposite. They try to hold on to thoughts, to emotions, to control what is constantly changing. They resist what is, and in that resistance they create suffering. A man once spent years resenting a person who had wronged him. He replayed the events over and over in his mind, imagining different outcomes, wishing he had said something different, done something different. The more he thought about it, the angrier he became. The other person had moved on, unaware of his suffering, yet he carried the weight of the past like a heavy stone on his back. One day he saw a leaf fall into a river, and watched as it was carried away by the current. In that moment, something inside him shifted. He realized that he had been holding on to something that no longer existed, something that only lived in his mind, and in that realization he let go. People hold on to pain, to regrets, to identities that no longer serve them. They define themselves by past experiences, by old wounds, by memories that they cannot change. But the past is like a footprint in the sand. Once the tide comes in, it is gone. The only thing keeping it alive is the mind's attachment to it. A woman once feared the future. She worried about things that had not happened, imagining every possible disaster, playing out endless scenarios in her mind. Every day she lived in fear of tomorrow, missing the beauty of today. But one morning, as she watched the sun rise, she realized something. No matter how much she worried, the sun would still rise and set. The world would keep moving. The future would come, whether she feared it or not. And in that moment, she chose to let go. Thoughts and emotions come and go, just like waves in the ocean. No wave stays forever. No feeling lasts, no thought is permanent, yet people cling to them, believing that they define who they are, but they are not their anger, their sadness, their fears. They are the space in which those emotions arise and pass. When they learn to simply observe without attachment, they become free. A monk once told his student, "If you hold on to a hot coal, who suffers?" The student replied, "I do." The monk nodded. "And if you let it go?" The student was silent for a moment, then smiled. He understood. A network error occurred. Please check your connection and try again. If this issue persists, please contact us through our help center at helpopenai.com. People spend their lives searching for something outside themselves, believing that happiness, fulfillment, and peace are somewhere in the distance. They look for validation in achievements, for security in wealth, for love in others, and for meaning in external success. But no matter how much they acquire, accomplish, or experience, the feeling of completeness always seems temporary. The moment one desire is fulfilled, another takes its place. The search never ends, because they are looking in the wrong place. The truth is, nothing outside can make them whole, because they were never incomplete to begin with. A man once climbed to the top of a mountain, believing that enlightenment was waiting for him there. He had spent his entire life searching, reading, traveling, hoping that one day he would find the missing piece that would bring him peace. When he finally reached the peak, he stood in silence, expecting some great revelation, but there was nothing, just the sky, the wind, and the sound of his own breath. At first he was disappointed, but then a deep understanding arose within him. There was nothing to find, because nothing had ever been missing. The peace he sought was never in a place, a thing, or a future moment. It had always been within him, hidden beneath his endless searching. The mind tricks people into believing they are incomplete. It tells them they are not enough, that they must achieve more, become more, have more. It constantly points to the future, making them feel as if something is lacking in the present. But this feeling of lack is an illusion. It is not real. A newborn baby does not come into the world feeling incomplete. A child does not wake up thinking they need to become something else to be worthy of happiness. These ideas are learned over time, shaped by society, by expectations, by comparisons, and because they are learned, they can be unlearned. A woman once stood in front of a mirror and saw every flaw her mind had conditioned her to believe in. She thought of all the things she wished were different, all the ways she had been told she wasn't good enough. But then she closed her eyes and took a deep breath. For a moment she let go of every judgment, every comparison, every thought about who she was supposed to be. In that silence, she felt something she had not felt in a long time: peace. Not because anything had changed, but because for the first time she was simply present with herself, without resistance, without trying to be more. Nothing needs to be added to a person for them to be whole. The belief that something is missing is what creates suffering. The moment they stop looking outside and turn inward, they realize that the wholeness they seek has always been there. The journey was never about becoming more. It was about remembering who they already are. Fear controls more lives than any force in the world. It shapes decisions, limits potential, and keeps people from stepping into who they truly are. Most fear is not real. It exists only in the mind, created by thoughts about what might happen. People fear failure before they even try, rejection before they even speak, loss before they even have something to lose. They live in fear of things that may never come to pass, yet the fear itself holds them captive, preventing them from fully living. A man once dreamed of starting his own business, but every time he thought about it, fear stopped him. What if I fail? What if people judge me? What if I'm not good enough? These thoughts played in his mind on repeat, and so he waited. He told himself that one day when he felt ready, when the fear was gone, then he would take action. Years passed and nothing changed. The fear never left. One day he met an old friend who had started his own business. He asked him, "How did you overcome your fear?" The friend smiled and said, "I didn't. I just stopped waiting for it to go away." In that moment, the man realized that fear never truly disappears, but it loses its power the moment action is taken despite it. Fear is only powerful when it is believed. A child may be afraid of a shadow in the dark, convinced that it is a monster, but when the light is turned on, they see that there was never anything to fear. This is how most fears operate. They seem real when left unexamined, but when faced directly, they dissolve. Yet people let fear dictate their lives, avoiding risks, staying small, convincing themselves that playing it safe is the right choice. But safety is an illusion. No matter how much someone tries to control life, uncertainty is inevitable. The only real security comes from the ability to face fear rather than run from it. A woman once feared public speaking. Every time she imagined standing in front of an audience, her heart raced, her hands trembled, her mind filled with panic. But instead of avoiding it, she made a decision. She would step into her fear, not away from it. She signed up for a speaking event, stood on stage, and felt the fear surge through her. But she did not run. She took a deep breath, spoke her first words, and something incredible happened. The fear did not disappear, but she moved through it. And with every word she spoke, its grip loosened. She realized that fear was not a wall. It was just a doorway waiting to be walked through. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision that something else is more important. Every great achievement, every act of transformation, every moment of growth begins with someone feeling fear and choosing to act anyway. The ones who go beyond fear are not those without it. You have spent your life searching, striving, resisting, fearing, believing that happiness, peace, and fulfillment exist somewhere outside of yourself, somewhere in the future, somewhere beyond this moment. But the truth is, everything you have ever sought has always been within you. The mind tells you stories, stories of limitation, of inadequacy, of fear, but you are not your thoughts. You are the awareness behind them. Happiness does not come from achievement. Love is not something you must earn, and freedom is not found by controlling life. These things arise the moment you let go, the moment you stop fighting what is, stop identifying with every thought, stop waiting for the future to bring you what only the present can offer. Fear will always whisper, but you do not have to listen. The past will always try to define you, but you are not bound by it. The mind will always create illusions, but you can choose to see through them. True power comes not from changing the outside world, but from mastering the world within. Right now, in this very moment, you are free, not because you have achieved something, not because you have become more, but because you have remembered who you truly are. The river does not resist the flow, the sky does not hold onto the clouds, and life does not wait for permission to be lived. Neither should you.